you go. Just look at me. We'll be fine. I want to welcome Vijaya Nair. You are an MD.
Yes, I am.
And you have an interesting book out, Prevent Cancer, Strokes, and Heart Attacks and Other Deadly Killers. And we were thinking about this in terms of Elizabeth Edwards, who passed away this past week.
That's a very sad.
And I don't know exactly whether she's conventional or non-conventional treatment, but tell me about your story and how you got involved in unconventional treatment for these diseases.
Well, that's a very interesting story because I come from Singapore,
right.
Very medically trained, conventionally trained, and I did my postdoctoral research fellowship at Harvard Medical School in Boston. That was about 17 years ago. So as straight as you can in terms of conventional medical training.
Right.
But when I started my trainingship there, my professor and mentor at Harvard suggested that I don't just look at conventional medicine but actually explore mind, body, spirit medicine. I was surprised because he was an epidemiologist. Fast forwarded, I end up in Columbia University as a lecturer, as a student there, as practicing psychiatric research.
Yeah, you're a psychiatrist, right?
Yes,
as well,
I am.
As an MD.
Yes.
I mean, you're an MD, but
I'm an MD.
You treat, in addition to doing physical treatment, you also are a psychiatrist.
I'm a psychiatrist. I was trained. But I got involved in interventional research. So when I started looking at mind, body, spiritual medicine, and I, worked with my colleague, Dr. Mehmet Oz, at that time, and he turned me on to energy medicine. So when Dr. Oz was looking into that and other esteemed colleagues were looking into it, I started getting interested. And what we started looking at was fermented soy, Alan, that was being used for patients with cancer and other chronic illness.
Why fermented soy? Why did that become, whoever thought of that as a possible treatment?
Well, in Singapore, apparently, in Chinese medicine or pharmacopoeia, fermented soy or cultured soy has got a very high regard as a medicinal foods.
Right.
And I had seen and regarded that as very important foods that we need to put in small amounts, like miso and tempeh in our diet. So that interested me because we were seeing patients who were improving and who had terminal cancer. So I looked at nutritional support, how to support people when they were going through all these allopathic treatments that were causing
Is it true that you wanted to get this out to the American public but didn't write about this in medical journals? Is that true? I mean, this is not something that's been explored scientifically in the medical community?
Well, it has gained a lot of interest. So when I was at Columbia, we started submitting reports.
Has it been peer-reviewed?
Some of it, yes. Many of it, yes. On fermented soy, on curcumin. I worked with researchers at MD Anderson Cancer Center and with Columbia University and at Harvard. And we were getting it published in peer-reviewed journals. So we were getting that. We were under the impression that, this has to reach a wider public, but we needed to get research funding.
Okay.
And how was the trick?
So where are you now? Because we have a short segment here, sadly, but where are you now on this alternative treatment? How prevalent is it? Can people get it?
Oh, absolutely. The alternative treatments are available, but the problem is that there's a lot of snake oil out there. So to look at research, it's very important. That's why when I came out with the book, Prevent Cancer, Strokes, and Heart Attacks and Other Deadly Killers, we found out that they needed to be aware what the research was and who was doing what the research.
But if you go to your typical doctor, you find out you've got some deadly disease. Are they going to be able to? Where do you go if you want to explore these alternative therapies? Will a typical MD be open to it, or do you have to ask for it, or do you have to seek out a particular specialist who will give you this kind of treatment?
That's a very good question, Alan. Apparently, a lot of medical doctors are getting into, sadly, many of them, allopathic medicines, medical doctors are not into, alternative treatments. But those who want it and who want to search for it, there are sites at MD Anderson Cancer Center, even at Columbia, but you need to look into the internet. You need to look at where in your resources established centers are doing the research. And one site that you can go for is something called PubMed, P-U-B-M-E-D, where peer-reviewed journals on alternative therapies are published online.
So is it all about soy? Is that the magic bullet? Is that the answer?
That's not only the answer. That's one important answer because we are dealing with chronic low-grade inflammation. So natural products that address chronic low-grade inflammation include fermented soy, but there's curcumin, resveratrol, green tea, ashwagandha. The list is so many.
Now, you recommend these instead of radiation, instead of chemotherapy, for example? Well, in place of those kinds of treatments?
I work with the allopathic medical community, so I feel that, because all these treatments that you
Right.
mentioned have toxic side effects, you need to do a lot of nutritional assessment of the patient, and
Yeah.
you need to give them good nutritional support and supplementation. I
Right.
think that's very important. You also need to look at how patients decrease stress, because, stress is going to affect a
Yeah.
lot of hormones in our lives. So I advocate meditation. Definitely, everybody should practice meditation, get through the confusion and the
But
fear.
specifically radiation and chemotherapy, are those out in your mind and should not be used?
I don't think there's a place to say it should be out. I think it should be used judiciously. You should work with a team of doctors, oncologists, and nutritional support.
But you would say that
and
if at all possible, not use those modalities because their side effects are so great, and if you can find other ways to do it.
Well, if you understand the side effects and your doctors are going to tell you how serious it is, and if you're one of the few that is suffering so greatly from it, doctors are going to say you cannot use it, then what? So I'm saying if you use nutritional support, you may be able to take the chemotherapy and radiation much better.
All the information is in your book, Prevent Cancer, Strokes, and Heart Attacks. It's not the same treatment for everything, though, right? Obviously.
No. Everybody has got different areas of our body that need to be addressed.
All right.
So
And where can
you
people,
need that.
is this book available on Amazon, or do you have a website where people can get it?
They can get to my website, jivasupplements.org. Jiva spelled Jiva supplements.org, or they could buy the book in Amazon.com,
Okay.
or in Barnes and Nobles, or even from my publishers, 1-877-900,
Right.
book. That's it.
Dr. Nair, thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you so
having you
much.
here
Thank
today.
you.
We're going
It's
to
a
be
pleasure.
presenting